The Cape Cod Commission is the regional land use planning and economic development agency serving the 15 towns of Barnstable County. The Commission's mission is to protect the unique values and quality of life here on Cape Cod by coordinating a balanced relationship between environmental protection and economic progress. The Commission has several departments that help carry out that mission: natural resources, planning, water, and of course transportation, which is what we are here to talk about today. I'm Sarah Colvin, the Communications Manager for the Cape Cod Commission, and joining me is Colleen Medeiros, Transportation Program Manager, and David Nolan, Senior Transportation Planner. We have a number of transportation-related documents that are in the planning process that we are here to talk about today. But Colleen, I wanted to start with you. Tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about the Commission's role in transportation planning.
Sure. So Commission transportation staff serve as staff to the Cape Cod Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the regional body governing over the transportation planning funds that come to our region from the federal government. Transportation staff prepare an annual document each year called the Transportation Improvement Program, as well as the Unified Planning Work Program, the UpWP. Those are items we'll be further talking about today. Those really set the short-term outlook of what's happening for transportation improvement on Cape Cod. And then we also have a long-term vision document called the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP, which is the long-term range planning document, and we're actually actively working on an update to that as well, which we'll be looking for feedback and talking about today as well.
Great. So we're going to talk about all of those documents in this interview today. And I think it's important to note that just really the amount of planning that goes into roadwork projects across Cape Cod. I think that anybody who's been on any road on the Cape in the past few months has seen there are projects everywhere. And it's not just, you know, the towns decide, hey, we're going to do this, or the state decides we're going to do this. There is a massive amount of planning and public input that goes into these projects. So let's start with the UpWP, the Unified Planning Work Program. David, what is the UpWP?
So the UpWP, in short, is essentially the transportation staff's scope of work for the year. So the UpWP is developed annually by Commission staff on behalf of the MPO, and essentially we're just outlining all of the planning work we're going to be doing over a 12-month period. The UpWP projects begin October 1st, they run through September 30th of the next year, and it outlines all the planning projects, like I mentioned, that we're going to be working on that current year.
Great. And so can we talk a little bit more about what kind of projects those are? What kind of planning projects do we see on the UpWP?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of projects. There's short and long range transportation planning projects. In the past, we've done a lot of corridor studies, analyzing crashes on local roadways or at local intersections. In this upcoming year, we're actually going to be looking at a downtown Chatham parking and circulation study. We're going to be looking at the existing parking lots in town, counting the number of vehicles parking at certain times, looking at bike and pedestrian facilities, sidewalks, crosswalks throughout downtown Chatham, kind of better understanding how that area works. We look at crashes, like I mentioned, in local intersections. So we're going to be looking at a couple of intersections along the Route 6 corridor. We're going to be looking at the interchange system, actually, and looking at the local roadways. So kind of understanding what's happening when you're getting on and off the highway. Not so much at the actual ramp on the highway, but when you're getting off at the local roadway. We also do a lot of data collection each year. So if you've ever been out on the road and you see those little tubes on the roadway, that's us. We're collecting traffic count data, roadway speeds, vehicle classifications, and so on. And a lot of those projects help inform the construction projects you see in our region.
And so how does the project get on the UpWP? How do you decide what rises to the top?
Yeah, so every spring, like we're doing now, we do an extensive outreach portion for the UpWP to try to see what kind of needs there are in our region. What we'll do is we'll go back to previous comment periods, look for projects. We look at a lot of our crash data. We try to find those intersections that haven't had planning studies or any construction work done in recent memory, trying to improve safety of those locations. We also solicit feedback from the MPO or the JTC, the Joint Transportation Committee, as well as local town staff to try to piece together all the planning projects that are going to help us lead to construction projects somewhere down the line.
And what role does the public play in all of this?
Yeah, so I mentioned we have an extensive public outreach portion to the UpWP as well as the TIP. We want to hear from the folks that are driving, walking, biking, taking buses on our roadway network. We want to know where their problems exist so that way we can start to understand where those problems exist are. Obviously, we're users of our roadway system as well, but we're familiar with where we're familiar. So there's lots of areas that we need to hear feedback on. So we like to hear where the needs are so that way we can better understand the network and then go out and improve it as best we can.
Great. And of course, the UpWP, one of three transportation plans we're talking about today. The UpWP, I understand, kind of feeds and supports the transportation improvement program. So how does it do that? How does the UpWP support the TIP?
Yeah, I think we sort of like to summarize most TIP projects start as UpWP projects, and that's not always the case. But you know, we spend a lot of time, like I said, we analyze crashes, existing conditions, roadway volumes. We want to understand how vehicles are using these roadways, bikes, pedestrians, and so on. After we finally, complete a planning study where we can outline some recommendations, we work with the town, we work with the Mass Department of Transportation, we work with the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, and so on during these planning studies. We then sort of start to see what could be fixed or enhanced at these locations, intersection, roadway, bike path, so on. And at some point, a planning project can become a construction project. Goes through a long state process. Colleen does a lot of great work on the TIP to then get it to construction funding at some point. Now, these projects don't happen overnight. It's not a UpWP study this year and then shovels in the ground the next year. There's a lot more planning and engineering that will go behind the project after the UpWP study. But most TIP projects do start somewhere along as a UpWP study.
Great. So let's talk, Colleen, a little bit about the TIP. Can you tell us a little bit more about just the background? What is the Transportation Improvement Program?
Sure. The Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, is our 5-year schedule of regional construction projects. These are multimodal, so it's not only roadway repaving, but it's also bike path construction, intersection improvement, as well as actually funding for the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority for bus stop improvements and bus service. All of these projects on the TIP receive federal funding, whether it's through from Federal Highway or Federal Transit Administration. So they all come together as part of the TIP.
Can you share some examples of projects that have gone through the TIP process?
Sure. So there's a couple right now that are in construction that you might be familiar with. Mashpee Route 151 has a phase 1, which is under construction right now, that received project funding through the TIP, as well as Route 28 in Yarmouth Road. That's a major regional intersection near Cape Cod Hospital. One of our newer projects that just went through the TIP and has just started construction this year is a shared use path along Service Road in Sandwich. So that eventually will be part of the regional network, eventually connecting up hopefully to the Cape Cod the Cape Cod Rail Trail. And then we also have a roundabout that's starting construction in Orleans, Route 28 and Route 39 as well. So a lot of projects that have started, and really the lifespan of a TIP project is not just it's been happening in the background for many years to get to this point, which is great.
Absolutely. I feel like the Willow Street Route 28 in Hyannis has been talked about for more than a decade.
Yes.
Certainly, as a reporter, I feel like I went to public meetings about that when I was still on the radio, which was a long time ago. So that as you see them move through the process, it's not fast, but I think it's necessary to have that long process for the amount of money that they put out for these things, and also the amount of data collection that goes to support. Is this a project that really will benefit the Cape in the long term? So how do they decide what projects get on the TIP?
Right. So for a project to start, it really needs a project proponent. So once the need has been identified, whether it's the state, Mass DOT, because they own Route 28, Route 6, or a local municipality, they want to bring forward an improvement project and they need help to find construction funds. So they set forth, there is a MassDOT process as part of getting on a project on the TIP through the project review committee. So there is an online portal to establish the project need and scoping. And once it's approved and reviewed by the project review committee, then it becomes eligible to be programmed on the TIP. Then the Cape Cod Metropolitan Planning Organization reviews all eligible projects every year. So this happens in this winter, spring time frame. And they select the projects based on a number of different evaluation criteria and factors. Most of it is, based on cost and which projects are already in the design engineering process. We get about 13 million to 16 million each year to program a project or two on the tip. And then it's based on a number of factors that we encourage the MPO to review, not only public support, so seeing how this project is supported through, not only the local leaders, but the general public as well. We do a project evaluation score as staff. We look at more detailed of what this project design incorporates. So from safety to multimodal improvements to environmental impacts. We want to see the range of, and really see which projects rise to the top, all-encompassing, improvements for our community. And we also consider equity as part of this whole process. And we want to make sure these projects, if they are near an equitable community such as low income or a limited English speaking, we want to make sure these projects have a positive impact for those communities as well.
Absolutely. And so what happens once the tip is approved, and then what role does the public play?
Right. So once the tip is approved, it'll be in this May time frame. So the projects that are in the early time span, so we have 5 years. Right now we're looking at the years of 2024 to 2028. So those projects in 2024 are wrapping up their engineering design. So they will go into construction next year, out for advertisement. And then the projects in the lighter time spans still have a ways to go. So like I said, the lifespan of a tip project, likely from its concept identification to shovels in the ground, is 10 years. So these projects that are on the tip are moving well forward, but they have to finish their engineering design, as well as Mass DOT oversees all of the engineering design, so they have to go through their review process, which also includes a public outreach component, so the public is informed and can stay on top of the design. And then the project eventually will, seeks continuing funding through the tip. And then we have a lot of great projects on the tip for this next 5 years. So people will start to see these projects come to life. And for bike path, we have a couple extension projects. We have one in Bourne Rail Trail, the first segment to be constructed from the railroad bridge by the canal. We also have another extension of the Cape Cod Rail Trail from Yarmouth into Barnstable, so a new bridge over Willow Street for bikes to go on the bike path. And then we have some great roadway intersection improvement projects. So there'll be another Mashpee Route 151 improvement project coming. This will pick up where the current project is terminating, and it will bring the improvements all the way to the Falmouth Town Line.
Wow.
Extending that shared use path that's out there, so that'll be a great improvement. We also have numerous Route 28 projects. So from a sidewalk in Harwich to Saquatucket Harbor, to just Route 28 improvements for multimodal and vehicle in Dennis, Harwich. Chatham has a intersection projects, as well as the Bass River Bridge is going to be replaced, and $50 million is being funded through the TIP through the Mass DOT statewide funding. So a new Bass River Bridge will be starting construction very soon.
Very exciting. I boat under the Bass River Bridge with some frequency, and it's always kind of scary to look up. So very exciting to see that project. And it's always amazing to see the bike trail projects as well, just to see the improvements that have been made in the past 10 years with the new bike bridges down the street from this studio and in Yarmouth as well. It'll be exciting too. I live in Hyannis and I love to ride my bike, so to be able to hop on my bike from my house, get on the bike trail with ease, cannot wait for that day. Been waiting for it for a long time.
Right, and Provincetown, we're excited. There's a really great transformational project out in Provincetown that's on the TIP. They're going to redo a portion of Route 6 to make one of the 2 lanes into all bike zone lane and improve Shank-Painter Road intersection. So that's a great project. And the role for the public is very key and very important. So as part of the Metropolitan Planning Organization process and meetings, public's included and invited to all of the meetings. They're open for public comment. And this is an opportunity to let them, because they're the regional body selecting these projects, know where the needs are and where the support is. As well as in those meetings, we have representatives from Mass DOT, the Federal Highway and Transit Administration too. So that's really a way to really start to show support and need to really guide these documents and make sure the investments are in the right places.
Absolutely. So TIP, UPWP, those are updated on an annual basis, but just, because you guys don't have enough work to do, we're throwing something else in the mix this year, and that's the Regional Transportation Plan, and that's updated every 4 years.
Yes.
And this is a real long-range look at all of the modes of transportation on Cape Cod. So tell me a little bit about the RTP and how that kind of plays into all of your other transportation and the work that you do here on the Cape every day.
Sure. Yeah, so the Regional Transportation Plan is the overarching document that feeds both our annual UPWP and our TIP, Transportation Improvement. It sets the long-term vision for the region over the next 20 to 25 years for where we want these federal dollars to be spent. So it's very high level. We know that the TIP, we've identified some definite needs on 151 and Route 28. So those projects will be specifically called out in the RTP. But in 20 years, we're not really sure what those next TIP projects are just yet. So generally, we're planning to see high level what are some improvements, and we're seeing a lot of themes of low-lying roads. That's an area that will need to be funded and addressed, but we don't necessarily have that specific project yet. But knowing that we need to allocate dollars to that, as well as continuing with our multimodal improvements. We have a long-term vision for the region, Vision 88. It's for a bike path network from Woods Hole to Provincetown. So making sure that's documented in our region as well.
Great. David, anything that you want to add about RTP and kind of how that drives the work that you do or how you're involved in that process?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the public outreach portion of the RTP. I think Colleen hit it really well. We need to include very high level all the projects that we want to see in the UPWP and the TIP over the next 20 to 25 years. But just like TIP and UPWP, we're doing an extensive outreach portion of the plan right now. We're going to the communities. We've gone to Truro so far, Hyannis, and even Sandwich to talk about the RTP and get a real sense of what projects that need to be included in the RTP for that long-range plan. Obviously, we bring some ideas, as Colleen mentioned, 28 and 151, but we want to hear from folks in the community. Are there bigger needs? Are there other needs that we're not quite driving home the point of? So the RTP, you mentioned every 4 years. It's a big undertaking because it's a long-range plan, but it really does help feed the UPWP and the TIP on an annual basis in our region. So it's important to get as much feedback as we can on that plan as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it's not just the roadway improvements as well. It's also for transit as part of that conversation. So we're making sure the transit dollars are being spent, and it can even be, ideas that may not be on our radar yet, such as, do we need year-round passenger rail? So this is the guiding document where those big ideas can be documented, and so it's exciting that we can brainstorm for what we want transportation to look like in 25 years here.
Absolutely. And really, it's not just about getting people where they need to go, right, or making it accessible and available to all. You mentioned the Low-Lying Roads Project, and climate really plays a big part in this planning. As we know, the transportation sector is a major contributor to greenhouse gases in the region. And so, I know I did not ask you this before, but it's something that's coming to my mind in terms of just, can you talk a little bit about how climate change and planning for climate and reducing those greenhouse gases, how that plays into the vision, not just in the RTP, but maybe in TIP and UPWP projects as well?
Sure. Yeah, climate change is here, and every 4 years when we're updating the RTP, we learn more and have seen changes. So, some of the themes is the low-lying roads. We now have a Cape Cod Climate Action Plan that's helping us guide where these future investments should be spent. We know a lot more about electrification opportunities. So not only is, personally people are buying electric vehicles, they're going to need public charging stations. We're a tourist community as well, so we need to start planning for that, as well as the Transit Authority, Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, is looking to electrify their fleet to reduce the greenhouse gases. We know that the transportation sector does have one of the largest emissions in our region, not only nationally too as well. So we need to make sure these projects are, promoting alternate ways, getting around with your bike or not using a vehicle, or if they are using a vehicle, making sure we can balance congestion, so we're reducing the emissions, or allowing, for walking and biking opportunities in transit as well.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for talking about transportation today. I know that the governing bodies we talked about, the JTC, the MPO, those meetings are all open to the public.
Yes.
And if folks want to learn more, if they want to comment, explore the plans, learn all about the things, just go to capecodcommission.org/transportation. I'm also going to throw that QR code up on the screen so you can just do the thing with your phone and check that out. Colleen Medeiros is our transportation program manager. David Nolan is the Senior Transportation Planner. I'm Sarah Colvin, the Communications Manager for the Cape Cod Commission. Thank you so much for watching. And again, visit capecodcommission.org to learn more.